Welcome to Plymouth Public Health Matters. Today's show, we're going to be talking about a very special topic that's not new, but it is actually about a new program that's going to be coming through the Department of Public Health here in Plymouth. And as the Plymouth Public Health Director, this is very exciting. And before I go any further, I do want to introduce myself because many in the community may know me because I've been out and about. But my name is Dr. Nate Horwitz-Willis, and I am your Public Health Director. And on today's show, as our special topic, we're going to be talking about fats, oils, and greases, and the disposal of any and other foreign substances, as it may have some implications to our sewer system and even septic tank systems amongst our residential population and commercial population here in Plymouth. And on today's show, we have a special guest with us, and it's going to be Chad Whiting, who is the Assistant Director for the Wastewater Treatment Plant in the Sewer Division. And before I go about this topic, without further ado, I want to introduce you all to Chad Whiting.
Thank you, Nate.
Yes, it's such a special honor to have you here because I feel like this show is going to open the eyes up to a lot of people about what fats, oils, and greases is, commonly known as FOG.
Agreed.
Yes, so before I get into it, can you tell us a little bit from your perspective about what FOG is, and and I'm just happy to have you here today.
FOG is fats, oils, and greases that get disposed of, like you said, in septic systems as well as in the public sewer system. Yep. They cause numerous problems, collecting with other debris. Wherever the wastewater is allowed to slow down, these fats, oils, and greases can cause clogs and overflows.
So I also know from the public health perspective within my department, we look at fats, oils, and greases from the perspective of restaurants to make sure that they are in compliance. But as a new piece of the program, we're also looking to work with homeowners who may not know that much about it from the septic tank side of the house. But one of the things that we're very excited about to work with you on is to talk about what it means to dispose of these fats, oils, and greases and other substances. And the slogan that I've had the opportunity to, and honor to work with you on is called Cool It, Can It, and Trash It.
Right.
So this new slogan, I believe, and we have a cool graphic to show, is about getting people, restaurant owners and homeowners, to learn how to dispose of the fats, oils, and greases in a simple can. And have you had any experience with the disposal of this?
So if you take your frying pan and scrape your leftover grease into an old soup can, an old empty soup can, and allow it to cool down, they do have little plastic lids that go on top of the soup can, so you can put it in the refrigerator and allow it to cool down and congeal, so it forms a solid instead of staying as a liquid. So that way there you can dispose of it in the trash can, and it can go to the landfill versus going down your drain and clogging the pipes going to your septic system or the pipes leading out to the town sewer collection system.
So it's a very simple process. It's very straightforward. Is there any additional special equipment that people may need, or are there any other concerns that people may be aware of that they may not already know about?
From the homeowner standpoint, it's pretty much that simple. Mm-hmm. From a restaurant standpoint, there is protection that needs to be put in place in the form of a grease trap. There are a couple of styles of those grease traps: passive grease traps that go under the sinks, or what we do require, and whenever it's possible, is the underground interceptor, 2,000-gallon tank underground that allows flow to come through and slow down and allow those fats, oil, and greases to come to the top.
So I also know that from the public health side of the house, when we work with restaurants and we work with people who own septic tanks around this issue, a restaurant may say, well, hey, I don't have the proper type of grease trap that you want us to have, because there's confusion between what a passive trap is and what an interceptor is. And a passive trap simply can go under the sink, and it can catch the grease, and then it can be pumped out from a company at the restaurant. And an interceptor, it's tied into the piping of a restaurant, and it's in ground, and it can be inside of a facility or outside of a facility. Is that all accurate?
That is accurate, and the technology's come quite a way as far as the passive traps go. There are automatic passive traps that keep themselves clean and bring that fog material out into a small hopper where it can be disposed of more readily. The frequency of that passive grease trap could also be increased to be more frequent. Instead of once a month, it could be bi-weekly, and if it's really bad, bi-weekly could go to weekly to protect the downstream collection system, whether it be on septic system or on the town sewer.
Okay, great. So with the use of cool it, can it, trash it, it sounds like that's a primary prevention tool that people can use at home and in a restaurant. And then it should take off the burden of having a maximum load come into someone's passive grease trap or their interceptor grease trap.
So what essentially that grease trap is trying to do is cool it, can it, trash it. It's trying to slow that wastewater down, allow that grease material to float to the top, allow it to cool off and solidify so that it doesn't continue out of the grease trap.
Right.
There are things that affect that grease trap as well that people should be aware of. Surfactants and soap can carry that grease right out of the grease trap and into the town's collection system, or the septic system.
Or the septic system. Right. So for our viewers, we want to make sure that there's a good distinction of what this means. So essentially, if you're a homeowner, using a simple coffee can or any type of kind of small receptacle to allow your grease to go into that receptacle and cool itself off and congeal, and then you cap it and you put it in your garbage. Whereas if you're a restaurant or a commercial facility, that should go into your passive grease trap or your interceptor, and it goes through the cool it, can it, trash it method, and that interceptor or grease trap should get regular pumpings. So right. That's all accurate.
Yes, and those grease traps, as they're pumped, that fog is brought to a facility that can handle that. The Plymouth wastewater treatment system, the public wastewater system, is not equipped to handle fats, oil, and greases.
Okay.
Like many municipalities, the fog causes problems with the treatment.
Right. So that brings me to another question. When you say like many municipalities, and I think we have to look at this from so many vantage points. That's why I'm so glad you're on the show. So from an operational and even a financial standpoint, based off of your expertise, which I think the town is gracious to have, how do you see this impacting the system, based off of what we're talking about here? So
the town has just completed a collection system investigation, which we were mandated to do under administrative order from Mass DEP and EPA. That cammering cost $1.3 million. That was due to sewer system overflows that can be directly related in some instances to the fog,
right?
The fats, oil, and greases. From a financial aspect, it's very important to us to keep that out of the system. And the easiest place to do that is at the source, to maintain these passive and interceptor grease traps properly, to keep it from getting down the drain. A lot of restaurant owners don't realize, they think that passive trap is doing the adequate work, and in some cases we've found that grease trap is not properly sized for that restaurant and the flows that they have coming through their facilities. So that grease makes it out of the grease trap because the frequency is not enough to maintained enough, so that the grease trap gets overwhelmed, and it causes problems in the building sewer lateral. That's the pipe leading from the restaurant to the town's sewer main. That pipe gets clogged, and I've seen instances where restaurant owners didn't even know that they were calling the plumber guy to clean that pipe out, on a quarterly basis, 3 and 4 times a year. They didn't realize that it was in relation to not properly maintaining or not having the right size grease trap.
Wow, that sounds very complex, because on the surface it looks like, oh, I'm taking care of my grease trap, or I am, making sure I don't put too much grease down into my septic system, but it leads to other blockages because you're not properly following the procedures according to manufacturer standards as well.
Well, not just that, Nate. This program that you're launching, and in cooperation with us, is exciting to me, because now we can determine frequencies on some of these restaurants that can't fit the 2,000-gallon interceptor. Maybe we can help them to look at technologies that can protect their building sewer lateral in the town's collection system, or a restaurant that's tied to their septic system, help them protect their downstream facilities from damage, because as well as in the town sewer system and making clogs, in a septic system, it shortens the life of the septic system.
So that brings me to another point that a lot of people may not know about. If you don't mind, if we take a quick look about what people may not understand, and I didn't really quite understand the intricacies of this from your perspective, but it's as simple as saying, hey, to the public at large in Plymouth, is that blockages due to fats, oils, and greases are a leading cause of overflows in septic and sewer systems. A lot of people don't know that. And after interacting with a lot of restaurant managers and owners, there seems to be this fear or hysteria because there's misinformation and what this is associated with. And it sounds like it's rather straightforward once we iron out these details. And that's why working with you, I believe, on the education of our sewer system and why this is impactful from a financial operational standpoint is very, very much needed to know about. So that leads me to talk about the visit I heard about that was conducted with you to talk about the sewer system at the Water Street pump station.
That's correct. Yeah.
So do you want to talk a little bit about that? And I think we got some footage to show too, right?
Yes, we do. And it's a little tour of our sewer pump station, our main headworks down on Water Street, 197 Water Street, and that's where all our wastewater comes to prior to being pumped to the treatment plant on Camelot Drive. So if you want to go to that footage.
Yeah, let's check it out.
Welcome to Plymouth Wastewater Treatment System. This is the main headworks building. This is our main screening unit. It screens all the heavy debris out of the wastewater as it comes into the station. This machine lifts it out of the channel, drags it out of the bars and brings it up, drops it into this hopper over here. This hopper over here then conveys it into the dumpster where it's brought to landfill for disposal. This machine right here next to me is the grit removal system. This takes the heavy sand-like material that settles out and conveys it up, gets flushed into here. It's allowed to settle down. It falls to the bottom. That material gets conveyed up this long screw and dropped into the dumpster on the other side. We can go around and take a look at that material. The dumpster's been recently emptied, but as you can see, a pile on this end is the heavy sand-like material called the grit. And the other end, those things that are all balled up, that's your screenings, which are flushable wipes that are not so flushable, that don't break down in the system, and grease and other debris that are caught up in that screen that are dragged up and disposed of in here. As you can see, the next slug coming out of that tube, that's what it looks like before it drops into the dumpster. We add a lime on top of it to try to knock down the smell to keep the odors down.
That was very informative, and I also understand that there is some another image that we have to show what is seen.
Bad day, Nate.
Yes, on a bad day.
When we were down there the other day, it was we've had a lot of rain events, so the collection system is pretty clean, comparably to having a spell of dry weather and then a severe rainstorm. This is what can wash in after a long dry spell and then a severe rainstorm. As you can see, that same piece of screening equipment that we saw was relatively empty, is overwhelmed right now with flushable wipes as well as fog.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that so we have fats, oils, and greases, flushable wipes, and possibly other foreign materials that could be harmful potentially to the public's health, and also causing degradation to the sewer system.
Yes, absolutely.
So also I understand that was the upstairs footage, and so we have some downstairs footage too, correct?
Absolutely. So if you want to roll to the next clip, we can look at what happens when the wastewater is allowed to slow down in the pump station.
Okay, this should be fascinating. Let's go ahead and take a look.
Welcome to Plymouth Wastewater Pump Station. This is our main headworks. All of our untreated wastewater flow comes in through this channel. It gets screened by this screening machine you see dropping down into the video now, grabbing all the debris that's located in the channel, building up against the bar screen. As this machine goes down, it comes back up, it takes that heavy debris out of the channel. That would be your flushable wipes that are not so flushable, any kind of rags or debris that have been floating through the collection system to make their way here to the headworks. As you can see, that stuff right on top of the rake brings it up and drops it into a hopper upstairs. Over here, you can see where the wastewater travels through and comes into our wet well. There are 2 wet wells in the station. This is one of them, one on each side. The water flowing in, you can see, is moving freely and then starts to form a blanket of the fog, the fat, oil, and grease material. As it's allowed to slow down, comes to the top of the wastewater level and forms a blanket. This blanket causes us problems with odors, also problems with hydrogen sulfide gas being created, decaying concrete structures and such. This fog is a problem throughout the system. Wherever the system allows the wastewater to slow down, this fog builds up, causing clogs in pipes, in manholes, out in the collection system, causing sewer system overflows. This is a major concern for every sewer system, not just the town of Plymouth, but this is an ongoing problem worldwide. As this is allowed to slow down, we'll come to the other end of the wet well, where it's really slowed down, and it started to form more of a blanket. As you'll see, this platform is where the guys climb down to clean this wet well out. It is formed into a solid, and almost it appears as though you could walk on top of it. As this water level goes up and down with heavy flows, this fog is moved around and gets transferred to the treatment plant, where it causes additional problems with the treatment at the wastewater treatment plant.
So that was impressive. That was insight I think that I definitely can appreciate, and thank you very much for taking on this job, because I never imagined the types of things that you deal with after viewing that footage. And you look good in that vest and that green hat over there. You should wear that more often.
You have to wear your protective gear in this industry, Nate.
Yeah, I believe that. So you mentioned a few things that I want to ask you about. One regarding the hydrogen sulfide. What is that like dealing with that?
So hydrogen sulfide is a gas produced in the disposal of septic. It has like a rotten egg smell. Mm-hmm. That gas clings to the biofilm on the inside of the pipes, and that biofilm bacteria oxidizes that hydrogen sulfide into sulfuric acid. Many can relate to what acid is. Acid is very corrosive. Mm-hmm. So in a concrete structure such as a wet well or a concrete pipeline, that can do severe damage to that pipeline. And the fats, oil, and greases cause more of that biofilm to accumulate in the system. So wherever your wastewater slows down, that's where the fog has a chance to come to the top and start to cause a problem. So as flows come up and down in the system, you have different spots where the wastewater will slow down and cause an issue. So we have what we call hot spots, where we know that in that specific area, we have to go and address those hot spots more often. Right. Some quarterly, some semi-annual, some annual. And that is related to fog issues. So
you talk about the hot spots. When you're dealing with these hot spots, how do you engage and interact with individuals who may be located near these hot spots, or people that may be able to do something about these hot spot areas?
That's where this program is going to come in, Nate, where we can coordinate with each other and hopefully minimize these hot spots and get the education out to the restaurant owners and the homeowners that might be attached to this piece of infrastructure where we're seeing the problems.
I definitely agree with that. And when we say where we're seeing the problems, and I think a lot of individuals may not quite understand how to properly get their grease trap cleaned and pumped when we're talking about that passive and that interceptor grease trap. And I know that when restaurants believe they're cleaning their grease trap, it could cause some issues. And when we're talking about what it looks like in a grease trap, it's not pretty. No. And we know that there are potential implications that arise when you don't properly clean your grease trap, as indicated here by the picture on the screen. So what do we have here? Can you explain that?
This would be a passive trap, an under sink passive grease trap. That probably has a little too much flow going through it. or maybe some surfactants from dishwashing soaps, helping carry that grease, that fog through the grease trap into the septic system or collection system, whatever this grease trap is tied to downstream.
So as we're weaving through this system from a passive grease trap point of view, what could this lead to?
This could lead to blockages in the pipe leading from the building to the town sewer main or to the pipe leading to the septic system, causing the owner to have to call in a plumber to snake that out, causing the town to have to come out and jet rod the main with a Vector truck. That is a cost of the crew, all their time, the equipment, the police details. There's a lot to go into fog-related issues and keeping responding to an emergency as well as keeping that system clean.
So when I talk about the public's health, I'm very much in tune to our bodies. So when we talk about grease clogging up the system, we're talking about grease clogging up a pipe, and it's basically akin to an artery.
Yes.
And when that clog is in the system, it's not pretty at all.
Right.
So what do we have here with this grease clog? Can you explain that in the sewer system?
Well, as the fog slows down in the system, depending on the rate of flow coming through that pipe, once the flow dies down, that fog settles down in the pipe, and then and causes a little bit of debris to land there and stay. And as that happens over and over again, you start to get something like you see here on the screen, where the whole pipe becomes eventually blocked. Then the flow can't go anywhere. So it surcharges that line and comes out of the next upstream manhole.
Okay, so we're basically talking about an overflow, and
that's what you're leading to here.
this is what this is going to lead to. And then when we're moving in the sequence of it, an overflow can essentially look like what we have coming up here next. And this is grease, and what else could this be?
This is grease, sewage, bacteria, fecal coliforms that can make people sick.
Yes, I am very much aware of the sick factor, and this is definitely a problem that could arise. And have you dealt with anything like this so far?
We have had system overflows since I've been on board with Plymouth. Like I said, we just went through a comprehensive cleaning program,
Right.
Which has helped quite a bit, and lowering that number of overflows. And we continue to maintain those hotspots that we found originally by sewer
Right.
system overflows. That's generally the practice. If we have a problem in an area, we name that a hotspot. We continue to watch it and go back and check that to make sure, was that a one-time thing?
Right.
Or is there a problem in this area? Then we can work with agencies like yourself and work backwards from where that problem happened to see, okay, what's upstream in that collection system tied to that area, so we can work together to find the problem and help educate the source causing the problem to eliminate from the system.
Right, and then I just keep glancing back at that picture because I'm just wondering about how much bacteria or pathogens could be in that, and if people aren't careful and if this isn't cleaned up properly, then there's a risk of exposure from all kinds of substances in the system that were backed up.
So we're also unique in Plymouth that we have aquaculture that is harvested in Plymouth Harbor. So we have to do our due diligence to keep things like this from happening, getting into the drainage system and making it to Plymouth Harbor. And we do a good job of that. If we get a call, we come out immediately. We look at the drainage system as well. If something's gotten into a catch basin, we start to vacuum out the drainage catch basins as well to keep it from getting to Plymouth Harbor.
Right.
We do our due diligence in treatment at the treatment facility to make sure we're in compliance with our discharge permit, and we don't have any excursions at the treatment plant that would cause a shellfish closure or risk to public health in that sense.
And see, that's the beauty of our relationship, is that we're very much interconnected to have good operational efficiency of the sewer system and also to prevent any type of disease development associated with the fog. And before we move on past this in septic, I know we're talking about passive traps, but a lot of the viewers may not understand what an interceptor trap is.
Right.
And can you explain that as it relates to the sewer system?
So as you see here on the screen, this is a 2,000-gallon interceptor underground. In chamber one, that's where a lot of your fog starts to rise to the top, and any heavy solids can settle on the bottom. And you can see the arrows, they're depicting the flow direction through the tank. And those baffles that they're directed around help to slow that wastewater down, allowing that fog time to cool it, can it, trash it,
right,
type of thing, where it's allowed to slow down, cool off, and stay inside this interceptor. And when properly maintained, this interceptor keeps the grease inside it. A hauler comes along and pumps that out, takes it to a facility that can dispose of it properly,
right,
and it doesn't cause anybody any harm.
Wow, that sounds very phenomenal to hear that it doesn't cause anyone harm when that's done appropriately. But one other thing, as a did you know point for our viewers, is that from what I understand, when you're grinding any meat or dairy and putting it into your disposal to grind up, excuse me, then this could lead to some inefficiencies in an interceptor or even in a passive grease trap. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. Any solids unnecessarily disposed into your drain are going to cause issues down the line.
Wow.
Whether it be flushable wipes, whether it be meat, dairy, that is going to contribute to fog in the collection system is going to cause problems. Yeah.
So all of this also is applicable to anyone that has a septic tank system as well too, because I deal a lot with the septic tank world in terms of Title V compliance. And a lot of owners of septic systems believe that you can put anything down into your drain and the septic system will take care of it, but that's not entirely accurate. And you also have homeowners who understand that their system has to get regularly pumped. So again, I have to stress the importance to the homeowners that, you know, cool it, can it, trash it is very much applicable to your septic tank system maintenance to make sure the lifelong ability of it is kept intact. But also, when we're talking about this, this is still connected to you for our homeowners, because how does the pumping of a septic system play into the operational efficiency of the sewer system?
Well, septic tanks are usually pumped and brought to a treatment facility. That treatment facility then processes that waste that's pumped from the septic system in the same treatment process that is used for the rest of the wastewater flowing into the treatment plant. Mm-hmm. So if you're not responsible taking care of your septic system at home and you have a lot of grease in it, that grease comes directly to the plant and gets discharged into our plant. Now, we don't take grease at the Plymouth Wastewater Treatment Plant, but per se, there is some grease in each septic load,
right,
because people are not aware of what they're doing in their own homes to put that fog into their system. But the other thing I want to stress too is the flushable wipes, Nate.
Right.
The wipes causes a lot of problems with the screening of that septic that's pumped from the home, and it also shortens the life of your septic system as well, and it also makes you have to pump your septic tank more often. So that's something else that we should be
definitely be aware of. I agree. Chad, this has been very, very informational, informative, excuse me, and inspiring because of the collaboration we're going to have, because before today's show, I wasn't quite aware in terms of the impact this has on our sewer system. I'm very much aware about the public health impact in the town of Plymouth. But I definitely want to say to our viewers, thank you for tuning in and watching today's Plymouth Public Health Matters, and we expect to have a follow-up on this. As you can see, we can talk all day about this. And ladies and gentlemen, Assistant Wastewater Director of the DPW Sewer Division, Chad Whiting, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, everyone, take care and have a good day.